Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today we continue with the Hazards of the Old Ones, Part 3, Chapter 17, the King of Xandar. So last week, we witnessed the horrific events happening in Xandarr Keep, a horrific battle with the Black Hats, with Captain Davage incapacitated, Sig almost helpless with her injuries that she sustained from Princess Rock, throwing up Silvertech walls, casting Silvertech as best she can, but she's not far from being spent. Kai shooting most of the mags that she brought with her, and is disappearing in a froth. They make their way down into the lower courtyards, killing a bunch of Holgismen with a Silvertech spear in the process. Sig falls out, and Kai has to drag both the unconscious Captain Davage and Sig, and as she is accosted by several Holgismen in the process, she discovers to her delight that Tweeter is not dead. Even though Princess Rock chopped him up, Ginsu'd him into 3 pieces, he just reformed like a trooper and was back to assist Kai in dispatching these Holgismen. Kai asked him to get them to safety, and he did so, and on the way, Kai links back up with Inez, who survived, jumping over the wall and wading into the Black Hats. They make their way to a wall with earthen pots where Tweeter had led them, discover a tunnel going down underneath Xandarr Keep, and get into it just in time before Holgismen and Black Hats arrive. Up in the Seeker, things aren't looking good either. Somehow, someway, the helm wheel has been completely detached, and a ring of shadow tech has revealed itself around Xandar, and the Seeker is heading right into it. They manage to reconnect very basic controls and maneuver away from the ring, but hearken, numerous shadow tech objects exit the ring and come towards them at speed. So that's where we currently are. Captain Davage had died also. The waft that he did in protecting Sig, Kai, and Inez killed him, and his soul was heading off to the Gallery of the Dead, as the Vith believe it to be. But Sig, astrally aware, refuses to let him go, grabs his soul and throws it back into his body. So that's where we are. This week, Part 3, Chapter 17, the King of Xandar. How can we have a King of Xandar when the king and his entire household are dead? We will find out immediately. So let's proceed, shall we? The King of Xandar. Davage awoke in a dimly lit, hot, dusty place. The air smelled of rotten fabric and cooking spices. Sick to his stomach, he leaned over to retch, but was able to calm himself. That waft just about killed him. Inez was so big. Kai, too. Even wafting Sig, tiny as she was. Sig? Where was she? He looked around, and bundled up in a dirty burlap cloth nearby was Sig, her head resting on a bunch of dusty old sacks. He sighted, checking her over. She was fine. She was perfectly fine, just exhausted. She should have never come down here. He leaned over and kissed her sleeping face. She stirred a bit, licked her lips, and resumed her deep sleep. His carg was resting against a near wall, his hat hanging from the X-shaped hilt. Curled up on the other side of him in her dirty bodysuit and boots, gun belt wrapped up beside her, was Kai, again using assortment of old sacks as a pillow. Her tweeter sat on a basket nearby, his light filling the chamber with a soft glow. Odd. He recalled seeing Tweeter get sliced into 3 pieces by Princess Rock's Baron. He didn't see Inez, and he didn't see Larson. He reached into his coat pocket and felt at the very bottom one Carahill figure remaining. He pulled it out. It was a white one. He gave it a squeeze. "Shadow Tech!" it squeaked. He laughed. "Well done, Carahill, and thank you, wherever you are." Kai stirred and rose. "Hey, Dav, you okay?" She put her hand on his shoulder. "You all right? You had me worried there." He pocketed the little figurine. "Fine, Kai. My stomach's in knots. Where are we?" "In a tunnel under Xandarr Keep. Inez and I dragged you and Sig in here. Tweeter found it. I thought he was dead. Cut in thrice." "Ha! You think that little blue-haired psycho can put the hurt on Tweeter? Guess again." "Were we seen coming in here?" "By the Black Hats? I don't think so. There's a whole lot of them roaming around up there looking for us. There are lots of people in this tunnel, and they saw us come in." Who are they?" "Refugees, by the look of it. Once they saw we weren't Black Hats or Holgismen, they didn't give us any trouble. They even offered us some food and water, though it's pretty nasty looking." He stood up and stretched. Again, his stomach was a rickety mess. "Have we contacted the ship? Or apprised them of our situation?" "I don't have a communicator, and Lieutenant Larson's Holomon got snared with an STT. Davage was quiet a moment. "Where is Larson?" He asked the question, though he already knew the answer. Kai looked at the dirty floor of the tunnel. He fell, Dav. He fell in the Great Hall." Davage flopped back down again and sighed. "He was entrusted to me, and I was to keep him safe, and I failed him." "You gave him every chance to live. Your sight saved all of us. You did your best, and it's not your fault. And it's not his either. He just couldn't react fast enough in an impossible situation. You were right. He seemed like a fine fellow, and he saved my life up there. I wish I'd had a chance to save his in return." Davage whirled around suddenly. "Where's Inez?" "He's around someplace, Dav. He's fine. Probably exploring the tunnel." "You're sure?" "Yes, Mother Hen. He carried Sig down here, looked her over, and wrapped her up personally. He also carried your car, though he wanted to drop it. Thing's heavy, isn't it? I told him I'd bust him one if he dropped it." Davage cheered a bit, reached out and put his hat back on. "Can you reach the sisters on the ship?" "No, I've tried earlier. Something's blocking our telepathy, jamming it somehow. Probably all those damn STTs out there doing it." The Black Hats. This must be what Carahill was talking about. Here's where they're going to have their blood. Probably going to raise Xandarr Keep to the ground and snare it into some sort of ghastly Shadow Tech amusement park as a warning to others. Here? Xandarr Keep? They hate House Xandar. In their minds, House Xandar caused their fall from wicked invincibility because of Princess Marlith and the failed attack on the Triumph some years back. Now look, people are facing the Black Hats in battle, capturing them, marrying them. The Black Abbess wants the League and the Zappins to tremble at their name once again, and here is where they're going to get their dark status back. We need to reach the ship either via telepathy or a comm link. We need a rip car. Kai stood up and grabbed him by the arm. "I don't know if we'll be going anywhere soon, Dab. The sky was full of Shadow Tech. All in good time, I suppose. Hey, come on, let's look to it and see what's about." He looked up and sighted through to the surface. He saw a gallery of Shadow Tech in the sky, an army of Holgismen, and a hopeless swarm of STTs roaming about like locusts. He didn't see any in the tunnels, which struck him as odd. Normally, STTs got into everything. He sucked in his breath. "Well, that's impressive indeed. I've never seen so much Shadow Tech in one place. They must have been at work preparing this attack for years. I've never seen so many STTs either. Probably trying to create an extended desolation zone around the keep for added effect, as they did in the Gorman-Bilson region of Baz years back. The sisters had to declare the area uninhabitable because of the swarm of self-replicating STTs placed there." Davage, weary and feeling sick, stood. He glanced at Sig's tiny sleeping form. "She'll be fine, Dav. Let her sleep." They were in a small, rough tunnel, poorly cut, lined with sacks of dried fruits, stale salted meats hanging from sticks, and wicker baskets full of odds and ends. He could hear people all around. Above, outside, he heard muffled explosions and cries. It sounded like a battle was going on. He checked Sig one more time, then stood and walked down the length of the tunnel with Kai. They came across a large symbol painted in mushy white dye on the dirty wall. "What's this?" he asked. "Don't know. I've seen those all over the place." He waved his hand in front of it. "It's coursing with radiant energy. Its wavelength is a little too short for you to see, but I can see it just fine. It's very bright. Inez said it's some sort of Zaffin Kabbalist symbol. I don't know what it does. Is it dangerous, do you think?" "Doesn't seem to be, but let's give it a wide berth for the time being." Ahead was a brighter lit circular chamber. Many people were there, huddled on the floor. There was Inez, silver-helmeted, standing amid the people. He had his backup scanner out, checking the ragged refugees over. His usual scanner was worthless and discarded, melted with Shadowtech traps. Many, it appeared, suffered various injuries. Some looked to be in the final stages of pregnancy. There were so many needing looking at. A tall man wearing torn Xandar veils and a dirty blue vest saw Davage and made his way towards him. The man was skinny and filthy, every inch of him covered with dust. The two regarded each other for a moment. "Am I to thank you, sir, for this timely respite?" Davage asked. The man looked at the floor and shook his head. "We were uncertain how you found your way in here. That entrance is supposed to only be opened from within the tunnels. Still, as you appear to be friendly, you are welcome here. All are welcome. For my countess and my crewmen, I thank you." "No, we should be thanking you. We hadn't hoped to have a League Hospitaller in our midst. Samaritan Inez has more than repaid us in the service he has offered. The wounded here are many. He also safely delivered several children a short time ago. The irony, to be born on the day Xandar dies. The planet is under attack from all quarters by the Black Hats." "Excuse me, did you say planet?" "Yes." Davage was taken aback. We of course know that the Black Hats have a particular dislike for House Xandar from the failed attack on the Triumph offered by Princess Marlith years ago. We thought their anger should stop with the House of Xandar. We didn't stop to think that the Black Hats would murder the whole world. They are, sir, right now, even as we speak. The Black Hats have authored the death of House Xandar, and, as I am sure you now know, now they have turned their attention to the people and all that has been built. They crave the death of every living thing on this planet, man, animal, and vegetable. Do they know of these tunnels? They do, but as of yet they cannot gain entrance. They have sought to swamp us out with hordes of STTs. However, we have arcane methods of keeping them out that are quite effective. Here, for now, we are safe." "Ah, good, Davage said, looking around. "We shan't tarry here and consume your supplies, as I'm certain they are vital. We must to our ship and away. I will, of course, share our supplies with you to help treat and feed these people as thanks. Please allow me to introduce myself. I am Davage, Lord of Blanchfort, captain of the main fleet vessel, Seeker." "I recognize you," the man said. "I know you well." "Really? I also have with me Sigillis, Countess of Blanchfort, my wife, and you have already met Samaritan Inez of the Grand Order of Hospitallers. Finally, this is Lieutenant Kylos, also of the Stellar Fleet. I'm his first officer," Kai stated proudly. Davage glared at her for a moment. "Might I ask your name?" "Sir." Again the man looked down and blushed. "Balor," he said quietly, as if the sound of his own name bothered him. "King of Xandar." "Balor? If memory serves, Prince Balor is the third eldest House Xandar heir, after Marlith and now Feshni. I saw Balor's corpse in the Great Hall not long ago. Princess Rock killed Prince Balor of Xandar." The man shrugged. He slowly patted the dust out of his hair. Soon the blueberry hair tint came through, clearly as Xandar. She killed my body double, Captain, that night when she came crazed, weeping, so I'm told, and fell on my family. That night, I was in the arms of a dirty courtesan in the city, a capricious hobby of mine that my mother frowned upon. I had many capricious hobbies. However, the delights of a weed-infected courtesan were my favorite and more than I could resist. I used a body double to stand in for me when I felt the need to go into arms with one. I employed a whole host of them in the village. Obviously, my dallying saved my life. I returned the next morning to a horrific sight. Rock and the black hats everywhere in the keep, my family all dead. And I have been on the run ever since, hiding from the spies, the black hats. As Rock arranged their dead bodies in the great hall, she noticed my body double and saw that it was not I. She has pursued me ever since to seat my dead, strangled body at the table along with the rest. She is relentless and she is insane, Captain. She seems to think I am her father. She thinks everybody is our father. She loved him very much, yet for his treatment of her, she hated him even more. And now that he's dead by her hand, she cannot bear to be without him. She wants her whole family with her at the grand table where she was never permitted to sit. The black hats have somehow enhanced her skills and her strength, and she has dogged my footsteps ever since I went to ground. Davage listened and was skeptical. And that being the case, why did you not quit the area and go into posh hiding on some Zaffin resort planet? Balor continued. A tired-looking, rather homely woman wearing torn garments saddled up next to him. I tried to do that, but it being generally known that the black hats crave my flesh, I became social poison. Nobody wanted me. All the doors, once wide open, were slammed hopelessly shut. I was essentially trapped here. I took to the tunnels, to the underground depths beneath the city and the keep. A miserable maidservant of the keep, a woman whom I'd never looked at twice, saved me. She brought me down into the tunnels, and the people hiding here took me in, though I did not deserve it. And here, in the dust and the mud, scrabbling for food, I have found a home and a beloved wife, as I married Gemerlin, the servant who saved me. And these here in the dark are my people. Davage thought he heard Sig stir. He turned to go to her side, Balor following. Your people? I never thought the House of Xandar gave much stock to its people. Perhaps it took a bit of starving along with my people to see what I was. Perhaps it took hiding with them in the dark, stealing food with them, sleeping in the mud with them, for me to shed my family's arrogance, to become a king at last. I suppose that's what I am now. Davage knelt down over Sig. She was coughing in her sleep, too much dust on her makeshift pillow. Davage took a handkerchief and wiped her face. Balor looked down at her. We had heard you had taken with a black hat as a wife. That mark on her face, is that a black hat tattoo of some sort? We have never seen one of their faces before. It is, though it's not a tattoo. It's her shadow mark. She is very beautiful. You do not fear her? Fear her power? I do not. I trust her with my life, and she carries my unborn son. How many people are down here? Thousands. More people arrive at a steady rate every hour, seeking shelter now that the attack is underway. A great tremor passed through the tunnels from overhead, sending people scrambling. Davage lit his sight and looked up. He saw in the courtyard above a literal army of Hulgismen, black carpets of STTs crawling on the walls, and the occasional black hat roaming about. And that wasn't all. He saw that Balor had spoken the truth. This attack wasn't just against the House of Xandar as he first thought. There was shadow tech as far as he could see for miles and miles. The sky was black with it. Farther up, he could see that Xandar, a ringless planet, now had a copiously huge ring composed of shadow tech ships circling its equator. He didn't see any telltale wreckage, so he knew the Seeker was still up there, somewhere, possibly on the other side of the planet. He'd not thought it possible. The Black Hats were indeed seeking to turn Xandar into a hopelessly snared, haunted world ringed with deadly shadow tech, transforming the entire planet into a huge spinning metaphor and lesson for all. And still that wasn't all. Huge shadow tech beasts, each several miles high, roamed the arid landscape. They looked like massive black spheres supported on a host of thin shadow tech tentacles. They roared with evil malice. One stood over a town, its tentacles reaching down and scooping up and letting fall back to the ground. People, great masses of doomed Xandarian people falling like bits of sand. Opening its huge maw, it popped them in, devouring dozens at a mouthful. Its laughter shook the ground. Flocks of giant shadow tech birds followed in the wake of these beasts, pecking at the remainders. Davage calmed his sight and looked away, unable to watch any further. "I'm sorry, Balor. King Balor. You were quite correct in your assessment. The surface is hopelessly snared. I've never seen such a thing. I am not unsympathetic to the plight of your people. We will away to our ship and contact the nearest Zaffin stronghold and inform them that Xandar is attacked and in need. I will do my best to convince them to come and assist, though I do not know what weight my voice will have, my League voice." Davage cleared the dust out of Sig's face, still fast asleep. "And again, as I said, I will leave you as much as I can in the way of supplies when we depart." Balor sat down on a straw basket near Sig. "In the keep, Captain, there is a sophisticated communications device. I believe my sister used to use it to contact you in private. On the morrow, when your countess is better, we will get you there so that you may pierce the shadow tech veils and reach your ship. I'm certain the device will still function." Davage was impressed. "So you wish to help us? You'd endanger yourselves for us? We will do what must be done. We will get you to the communications device. And in return?" Balor shrugged. "In return? Should that not be obvious? In return, I request you help us. In return, I request the fleet. I am asking you to stand with Xandar and save it." Pardon, sir? Captain, we are under attack, all of us. And there will be none of us left unless we receive immediate aid. We need help. In force. We need the League. With their might, surely we could... Sir, the League will not come," Davage said, cutting him off. "This, regrettably, is a Zaffin matter. It must be dealt with by Zaffins. I have told you that I will go to the nearest outposts, possibly Knolls, possibly Holly, and entreat them that Xandar is in need. Surely you've allies among the great Zaffin houses who will... These are Black Hats, Captain. This planet is under the gaze of the Black Abyss, and they are afraid in Knolls and on Holly. The Zaffins will not come, not for the sake of us. Therefore, there is only the League. I am asking for the League. I am asking for the fleet to come here and fight. Fight with us to save our people." Inez arrived at the corridor, followed by a mass of hurt, thankful people. He listened to the conversation unfold. "Again, King Balor, this is an internal Zaffin matter. The League will not come, and nor should it. There are decorums and mutually understood treatments that the two sides have maintained for centuries. And this, if I may point out, is not the first time two desperate Zaffin factions have come to grips. I recall the horrific tales of the carnage created by the feuding houses of Grith and Charn. Nobody asked for the League to intercede in that bloody affair. And what of the poor bodice massacred by the Charn? I also do not recall being asked to come to the aid of Zal 88 when House Xandar, your house, obliterated it centuries ago. Then perhaps they should have asked. Perhaps my family should have been stopped. And I will remind you, Captain, that the Griff-Charn dispute, though cruel and shocking waste of life, was fought with house forces and not laid upon the general population of the fiefdom. Yes, we are Zaffins, true enough. We are the enemy, your enemy. We are soaked in blood. Valor waved his hand at the masses of dirtied, injured, filthy people. And just look at them. Zaffin women, Zaffin children, Zaffin infirm, Zaffin infected, Zaffin farmers, and on and on. Yes, we are Zaffins, but we are Zaffins who have done nothing. All the evil that has been done here has been done by my family, and I will gladly face any pending charges or warrants written for me or any member of my house. I will make amends. I will face those charges first. However, I am begging you to help us. Davage was shocked. A king, a Zaffin king, begging? When had such a thing ever happened? Zaffin kings were prideful, even to their deaths. You're begging me, sir? Yes, I am begging you, he shrieked. I am the King of Xandar, and what is a Xandarian king? An empty throne, a tarnished crown upon a foolish brow? A king is the mouth and the body of his people, and a king does what he must for his people. I have learned these things. What good are my knees, if not to bend them for my people? What good is my mouth, if not to beg for help? And I, Balor, of House Xandar, King of Xandar, am on my knees. Balor fell to the ground, and Davage quickly pulled him back up. Get up, sir, please. And all those years you fought my sister, I watched, and I laughed at you, mocked you. But I always secretly marveled at your skill and your goodness. I'll say it. You are pledged to defend life, and you have kept that promise. Please do not forsake it now. Do not forsake us. If not you, then there is no one. If not you, then Xandar dies and becomes nothing more than a fable, a story to frighten children. But perhaps with your help, Xandar can mean something entirely different. Perhaps Xandar could be a place of hope, where a king finally saw the worth of his people and was man enough to swallow his pride and ask for help. Redemption is never too late. Davage looked around at the broken, torn people in front of him. I will consider your request, King of Xandar, though I can promise nothing. And with that, we conclude Part 3, Chapter 17, The King of Xandar. So, in reading that again just now, Davage comes across as somewhat callous and unfeeling towards these people, these poor refugees, these poor waifs of Xandar. You know, as the King Balor said, these aren't Zaffin warlords, Zaffin tyrants, Zaffin criminals. These are just people, farmers, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, who are feeling the wrath of the Black Hat for something the House of Xandar did. But you have to look at it from Captain Davage's point of view. He is a League captain. These are Zaffins. The League and the Zaffins are enemies. And it's been a long-standing tradition, or an unspoken set of rules governing the two sides in this conflict, that internal matters between the League and between the Zaffins are just that, internal matters, and the other side doesn't really interfere in them. He mentioned other Zaffin households have been at conflict, at war before, and the League didn't intercede. No one asked the League to intercede. And every so often, there's never really battles between League houses, but sometimes there used to be in the older days, sometimes wars were fought between the houses. And once again, the Zaffins didn't step in and help out or offer arms or anything. And also, Balor, King of Xandar, is a Zaffin king, and Davage is just a product of his environment and his upbringing. Zaffin kings aren't really people you can trust, people you can take at their word. They're Zaffin royalty, oftentimes Zaffin playboys and elites, living a posh life, a life of leisure, The word is used too often today, but a life of great privilege bought off the backs of their people, who he probably never thought twice about. And Prince Balor was certainly following in that tradition. He was a Zaffin playboy, had never worked a day in his life, lived a life of leisure, of pleasure, of dirty courtesans and ample wine, flowing casks, and that's all he ever knew, all he ever was. And then Princess Rock came and murdered his whole family while he was in town having sex with the dirty courtesan. And when he came back, he saw the disaster, all his family dead, black hats everywhere, and he was squirreled to safety by this maidservant of the keep, a miserable, homely girl he never even looked at twice, never even knew her name, but she got him to safety in the tunnels. And there, in the dark, in the dust, scrabbling for food alongside these hopeless people, it could just possibly be that Prince Balor of Xandar found himself and became the man he was destined to be. Not a playboy anymore, but an actual king that saw the worth of his people. Quite rare for a Zaffin to undergo this metamorphosis, and Davage is clearly skeptical as the king begs him for help. If the League doesn't come to help this planet, who is? They're gonna die. Xandar will forever be a ringed world, dancing in Shadowtech, a place that people generally avoid and fear. If you recall, or if you read the Cat book, that's exactly how Xandar was in that universe. It was the Xandar Desolation Zone, a place people went around and avoided just because it was too dangerous. So Zaffin kings usually don't get on their knees and beg a League captain for help. Davage is clearly taken aback, but maybe, just maybe, Prince Balor was speaking the truth, and he was sincerely asking for help. Next week, we will continue Part 3, Chapter 18, Red Ha, and we'll be back aboard the Seeker and see how the Seeker's doing in orbit. It's not very well, I can promise you that. Until then, this is Ren Presents. I am your host, Ren. Peace out.